Trans activists behave so much like preachy Christians when they say patronizing shit like "I hope one day you'll see how bigoted and fascist you are and you'll decide to be a good person," like. When y'all say good person you mean trans activist / trans ally, and what you don't seem to get is that most of us already were. Being a trans ally is exactly what gets you here. You witness the horrors of trans activism firsthand and it eventually becomes too much to keep up the cognitive dissonance. Y'all clearly think we just popped out of the womb as evil TERFs and have never listened to trans ideology or interacted with trans people before, when that's literally what TERFed us loudly crying face. My tiny rat hands. It literally is like this religion where people pretend you're worth sacrificing if you don't believe in their fake bullshit LMAO. Coming from a psycho-Christian family myself, I can tell a cult when I see one. Trans activism is a cult. 95% of pre-90s feminist literature needs to be tossed out. BC it makes men with gender fifis uncomfy. Males can participate in women's sports and apply for women's scholarships, and if you say anything about it you're a bigot. Males in skirts can come into your bathrooms. With you. Your wife. Your daughter. Every single female-only space needs to be rebuilt and tailored to include men. A man can act, dress, and behave like a man but be considered a butch lesbian now, and if you feel uncomfortable about it there is something wrong with you. Your female body is a collection of reproductive organs that mean nothing, but a woman is someone who wears dresses, makeup, and heels. Vulvas are obscene, exclusionary, outdated, and politically incorrect unless it's being presented pornographically for sexual entertainment. Men know more about being a woman than your mother and grandmother does. How much is too much? How much more can you take? I guess I'm just curious as to how we are supposed to fight the real issues like porn and prostitution with legislation when there are no female legislators left, because the all-women shortlists are made up entirely of trans women who literally owe their identities to sissy porn. Or when we can't write effective legislation because we aren't allowed to use certain language. What about the homeless shelters and rape crisis shelters or domestic violence shelters that are opening their doors to males because of legislation being overturned? Directly because of genderism, this shit is in the news like every day. Women in prostitution often need access to these shelters. Is this not considered related? Does that count as focusing on the real issues now? Like, I do not understand how anyone can look at the trans phenomenon and conclude it's less important to radical feminism than the stalwart issues of porn and prostitution. There are no hard boundaries between any of the issues that have been caused by misogyny, patriarchy, and capitalism. Fighting transgenderism is fighting gender roles and porn, for example. It's fighting against rape culture and pedophilia. It hinges upon safeguarding. Like, this is all important work, and treating it as somehow less than isn't helpful. Trivializing it isn't helpful. You can't separate these various issues out, they're all enmeshed, always. I get that some people get tired of the gender discourse online, I do too. Sometimes I'm not in the mood for it either. Sometimes it's tasteless, or contrived. But like, I'm not going to ask people to focus on other issues instead because it bothers me. It's important work. I'm also not going to assume that because a lot of my dash is made up of trans content that these people aren't also committed to fighting the other issues. Off social media, it looks pretty different. There isn't nearly as much trans-focused activism. It's more balanced. The online world isn't accurately representative of the real world in terms of what's being talked about and what matters to people. You'll see stuff that's controversial and inflammatory. Trans stuff fits the bill, much more. It doesn't mean people aren't doing real activism or work anymore. I'm sorry, I just don't like the tone of this sentiment. It reminds me of those posts that guilt trip people about caring about other, less important, issues, but no one's talking about this. They're a sagusi in the mainframe. Not to mention, men in women's prisons. Prostituted and sexually abused women make up huge numbers in prison populations. And they are now being exposed to violent male rapists and murderers in prison where they cannot escape. How is this less important? Arguably, if we can't get the gender cult under control, we will be less able to do anything to help any women in any sphere. We are being cut off at the knees by this ideology. It is a direct backlash to feminism. It is a direct hindrance. It works specifically to undo the decades of progress our foremothers made. It's important. Books of why not? Thank you. Perfectly said. Anonymous asked, genital preferences are a disease, hope you get cured soon. Hansa Plenty answered. Won't happen. I'm terminally homosexual. Requiem for a Spencer. Wow. How 1950s of you, Anon. You cannot shut me up. Nothing says right side of history like calling homosexuality a disease to be cured. I do think it's interesting that the language has shifted from block to stay safe to block because interacting with radfems will ultimately lead to you agreeing with them. Like, they know people are seeing that radfems aren't the violent, homophobic, and racist caricatures that they've been made out to be. They're acknowledging that radfems are reasonable, and that's ultimately more dangerous than radfems being a baseless hate group. Anonymous asked, trans women are hideous Frankenstein turfs and traitors to trans people, and so are blogs like this. SHEGO420 answered. It's interesting that you say traitors. It confirms the fact that gender ideology is an ideology/cult, and anyone who denounces it or leaves the religion, so to say, is a traitor and a Judas. It's also interesting that you said TERF to describe a trans woman, even though there's no guarantee that trans woman equals radfem, so that confirms the fact that TERF is a meaningless dog whistle to silence women you don't like. I also like how you said Frankenstein to degrade a woman's body, whereas if she hadn't detransitioned and stayed a transman, you'd be applauding her for having surgery or HRT. So either you secretly think all trans people are Frankenstein freaks for taking hormones and having surgery, and you only feel comfortable expressing that opinion once they've betrayed the church of transgenderism, or you're a misogynist who weaponizes women's bodies against them when they don't agree with what you believe in. Anyway, I hope sending this sad, pathetic message made you feel better, because clearly you hate yourself and your own body, so you must resort to mocking women who have finally reclaimed control of their bodies for themselves. I hope you find peace, Anon, and realize that women are not your enemy. The enemy is whoever is manipulating you to think like this and attack women unprovoked on behalf of males who will never protect you or care about you. Sappho's Witch GF. Ord trans women Frankensteins, Anon? Why they were stitched up by the same hands that stitch your beloved. Why does the needle you praise leave you disgusted as well? Trans gay guy. Follow up to the last post. Why did people take me so seriously and validate the hell out of me when I came out as trans and wanted to transition? Now that I want to detransition, it's the opposite. People are way less serious about it and a lot less validating. When I wanted breast implants, it was, OMG yes queen. I can't wait to see them. Now that I want them removed, it's, give it some time, make sure you know whether you like them or not. Also, people keep saying, you were always a girl inside, it's fine. You're just going through a rough spot and you've been through so much. You got this, don't give up. Like, oh my god, are y'all listening to me? I'm telling you I made a mistake and want it undone, so like listen, since you're supposed to be my friends. Don't just shrug it off. Anyway, support detransitioners just as much as y'all love to support trans people. Bye. On womanhood. Borg Queens. 13 things womanhood is not. 1. A sliding scale where some women are more or less womanly than others. 2. A welcoming open door club that anyone can claim membership to. 3. A special exclusive club full of wonderful privileges whose existing members decide who does and doesn't belong. 4. Wearing long hair, makeup, dresses, or otherwise performing femininity. 5. Being good at feelings and domestic tasks and bad at driving and math. 6. Acting cute, seductive, giggly, sexy, coy, submissive, or flirty. 7. A soft, warm, sensitive, nurturing, emotional or moody personality. 8. An interest in cute, pretty, soft, frilly or sparkly things. 9. A certain mindset, outlook, or way of thinking that's naturally ingrained in all women's brains. 10. A magical, mystical, undefinable state of being or sense of sisterhood. 11. A special feeling or instinct that comes from deep down in your soul that you just know. 12. A costume for men to wear. 13. An identity for men to claim. 2 things womanhood is. 1. A biological fact. 2. The state of being an adult female human who was born into a female human body. And that's all. That's it. Everything else is irrelevant. Sisking 70. Dorothy asked, hi, just popping in to say that you're truly disgusting. Hope you fall into a pool of sulfuric acid. Hope you break your neck. I really hope you choke on sawdust and die. Maybe even the sharpest shard of glass. You're just fucking evil. Imagine being so horrible of a person that your ego is fueled by hating on people who are just trying to be who they truly are. Imagine being so fucked in the head that you make invalidating trans people your entire personality. Imagine being such a repugnant example of a human. I'm praying all the ill happens to you. Sisking 70. Answered. Not gonna happen, baby. I practice eating sawdust and glass shards every day just in case of situations like these, and it made my teeth so powderful that I can chew through anything. Thank you for the heart though. Also I like your theme.